had been a golden afternoon, and I remember having the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the sunrise.
I feel like we might be a little disorienting. I'm just going to provide some orientation here. So what Alex and I are talking about stems from the 30 plus minutes in pre-show where I had brought up the video that OpenAI put out where Jony Ive and
I've not
Sam
seen this.
Altman, Alex hasn't seen it, sit down at, I think, the Zoetrope coffee shop in San Francisco to have a little espresso and talk about what they're doing. OpenAI acquired Jony Ive's company, I.O., for $6.5 billion to sort of christen the marriage between the two of them in formally, I think, producing a piece of hardware, a hardware device that will use OpenAI's artificial intelligence. So they sat down and had this conversation about a range of things, their values, what they are trying to do without telling you exactly what they're doing. There's a prototype that is being used by Sam Altman and a few other people to sort of do what this device is intended to do for the masses, and they're excited about revolutionizing how we interact with a computer. That the actual computer itself, like flip open your laptop and input stuff with a trackpad, a mouse, and keyboard. They think that that's legacy hardware, and it's ready to be taken out of the equation and replaced with this quote,
As
magic intelligence in the cloud.
Cams.
Yeah. This quote, magic intelligence in the cloud that this device is going to allow you to interact with in a way that lets you make things that you never could have made or do things that you never could have done, whether it's, build an app, balance your checkbook. Whatever it's gonna do. So we spoke about that for about 30 or so minutes, and and now we're trying to figure out whether or not that will play a role in this episode, or if we're going to talk about something completely unrelated.
Probably the latter.
Probably the latter. So
yeah, my take on that is, I don't know, skepticism
sure.
paired with, I don't know. It's probably worth doing an episode on thoughts on AI eventually, because there's definitely some nuance, I think, to both of us in our approach. But
and my big thing is, like, you have skepticism and all that. Mine is, what's this going to cost us? And I don't mean how much is the device going to be at a retail location, an OpenAI store, but what's this going to cost us as, a civilization, a society, a culture? And I was making references to social media and, the smartphone in general, and the cost of social media with misinformation and, all the different things that
depression.
are the negative side of social media, right? Depression, issues with young people and self-image,
death of creativity,
all of
originality.
And then smartphones, I've talked about this, you and I, and on my channel, just being, the siren song of the magic rectangle, and just like it being so difficult to do anything but stare or have a screen in your face at all times, because it's a way for you to make stuff. It's a way for you to communicate. It's a way for you to engage in digital third places, all that stuff. So what's this thing? And I'm asking rhetorically, but what's this thing going to cost us in order to have the magic intelligence in the cloud at our beck and call? What are we going to give up to do that? Back to the social media thing, we give up all of our personal data. That's the product, mining our personal data, our phone number, our zip code, what we click on, what we do, all of that stuff in order to serve up ads that are going to have a higher likelihood of converting us to buying something. All the consumerism that and what social media, including YouTube, promotes, all that stuff. So So that's what I think about. I'm like, I'm open and interested in a magical and revolutionary product, but I want to know what it's going to cost us to wield it, to have it, to use it, and is it worth that cost? I am someone who is more susceptible to seduction, and hey, I can make an app, or I can have it edit a video for me, or it'll do all these things, which I think is going to give me more time to do the things that are really meaningful to me. So it wants to listen to me 24/7 and capture imagery of everything I'm doing in order to do its thing. Okay, yeah, great. Because I can tell it to edit a video for me, and it does it in 20 minutes, and I give it a bunch of revisions, and then I'm done. And what took me usually 3 days before, and I'm now doing it in 45 minutes. Sold.
But what are you trading away?
Right. What's the cost of that? Yeah.
Oh man, then it's not your video; it's
Right.
AI's video.
Absolutely.
That your code. It's like
yeah, but I told it what
it's like
to do.
an Instagram filter. You have 7 options. Pick
That's right.
one of them.
That's right.
You have 6 colors. This is
Yeah.
you express yourself with one of these 6 colors.
Right.
And
But
these 3 interior options.
Yeah.
And it's just like we're gonna forget. I mean, no, I don't think. I think there's usually a counterforce to a lot of these things. We're in a pretty interesting period right now too, where I think the sins of Silicon Valley are in focus in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And some of it is just unwarranted. Some of it is just like convenient rhetoric or whatever. But yeah, I think it's an interesting time period to try to push a disruptive technology.
Yeah.
I mean, if it helps with day-to-day stuff, then you're always going to find an audience. And I'm very pro AI. I mean, I was talking to you about this stuff a long time ago. But the more I've used it and the more it's become integrated into my life, there's also just, you kind of see the limitation capacity. You kind of start to hit a ceiling in some of it. And it's going to be really, really good for a lot of industries and a lot of things, but it's going to do more harm than good for a lot of people. And I think eventually I like to hope maybe that's just optimism that, people will start to realize, oh man, the trade-off is not worth it.
The cost is too great.
Yeah. And I mentioned to Matt before, there's like my outlook on AI. I forget. I think it's a Werner Herzog quote. I'm not sure where this comes from, but it's procrastination is for good problems.
That's right. Yeah.
Bad problems should be killed immediately to make more time for good problems, and just replace killed immediately with fed to AI immediately. And
Right.
I think that pretty much sums up my view on large language models or whatever,
Right.
However you want to put it right now.
Is the concern though that people are going to put their good problems through AI as well? That they're not going to take on that.
It's like using GPS, or I've met so many people who just can't read anymore.
Yeah.
Not like can't read phonetically, can't pronounce words. They can't read. They have no attention span. If you give them a book, they can't physically make their way from
there's too much
beginning
friction
of book
there.
to end of the book. It's actually impossible.
Yeah.
And that's been such an impossibility for so long because of low information diet or high speed information diet.
Right.
That there's no like it would take them. You can't just jump into a marathon and run a marathon.
Right.
And I forgive that metaphor, but it's a useful one. You have to build up to it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that many of the cognitive skills that we take for granted, I think operate on a pretty similar on a pretty similar framework. And once you start to remove friction from that, I think you're also starting to remove the cognitive abilities that
Right.
you've built up or conditioned. And I mean, a lot of people can't navigate without a GPS.
Right.
A lot of people, can't make it through a book or can't sit down and watch a movie from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
And I see AI doing that with a lot of cognitive tasks.
You know, you talking about that made me think about Amusing Ourselves to Death by Postman and the shift from, you know, sort of written word consumption to imagery-based consumption with television. You know, and I don't know the answer. I'm wondering aloud. The feeling I got from watching that video was that there would be sort of a reduction in in the presence that screens have in our lives. And to me, there would be an increase in oral communication, that this would be like a person that you live with and you speak to them to get things done. You direct them, you have to kind of give instructions, you have to give feedback, and it's such a heightened language model that, you know, it learns the nuances of what you're saying, and maybe it can sense sarcasm or sort of like, you know, just these shadings of meaning to give you a new version of the thing that you're trying to make, whether it's a software application or a video or a lesson plan, whatever it is. And that, you know, you might look at a screen to sort of review what it's done for you, but then move away from it. So I'm curious what this would mean in the shifting of how our brain works. You know, again, Postman writes about how we think in imagery because of the television and the presence of screens and imagery and all that in our lives. Will this have an impact on that, or won't it? Will screens still be as ubiquitous to us, but instead of staring at a screen to like work on a spreadsheet, we'll be staring at a screen to just watch stuff?
Yeah.
And will those screens be strapped to our head like a Vision Pro and the video's more immersive? Will it be 2D movie theater? Will it be, you know, television in our whatever? Still be a smartphone?
How customizable can these, or how individual can these models get when plugged into a specific human's experience?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you know, you talk about the decay of images, or like we see the world through images, but we don't see it through a lot of images anymore, because there's not a lot of individual experiences happening. There's more of a collective experience happening. And so we already see in our day-to-day reality, and just in our language and in our conversations and in the ways like how we meme things and communicate ideas, the decay of metaphor, the decay of, you know, meaningful imagery past a certain point. And, you know, will this accelerate that? Because everybody's pulling from the same database. Nobody has room for an individual experience anymore.
Right. It's a collective experience.
Everybody has the same secretary.
Right.
So everything is being pulled from that, and the secretaries are pulling from the same library.
And once it's monetized, what are they giving you that helps them with their bottom line and their profits and the sort of
I think I saw a statistic too where, I mean, don't take this as like a specific, I'm not the one to recite like, oh, the number is exact, but I do think that a lot of OpenAI's actual profit comes from their commercial and not their consumer.
Right. Like enterprise?
Enterprise. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Which is more just token based.
Yeah.
So I don't think like their subscription, you know, my first thought when you're like, how will it monetize? It's like, well, subscription services. It's like, there's a reason they have $100,000 subscriptions or 40,000. I don't know what the exact numbers are at this point.
There's also a reason.
I know
they
have higher tiers now for enterprise based, and I'm not even talking about those being where the profit or the revenues come from. I'm talking about their like pure. You're using like you're opening their faucet for tokens to interact with this AI to build it into to backend it into an application or into something that is more custom.
Yep.
That's where most of their, like, it's not stuff that you and I think about going on and
Absolutely.
using ChatGPT.
Right. Yeah, to make an image through its Dolly with them.
Yeah.
And
I think that's honestly where a lot of the profit is going to come in AI, period. I mean, obviously there's a consumer market. Maybe their idea is that they'll get the jump on the consumer market. I mean, obviously there's going to be a huge consumer market for AI.
And they're paving the way for that by having
billions
a
of
free,
people that are going to use it every day.
There's a freemium, there's a paid subscription, which I pay for. And then as hardware products come out that couple with it, they're going to build an entire ecosystem, but then also have opportunities to monetize in other ways, potentially, whether it's advertising or sort of like Google has sponsored results. Mm-hmm. When you start using ChatGPT, like I need a spreadsheet of whatever, like it's going to be this company's spreadsheet format that it spits out, and that company's paying a premium to be the default whatever, it's because you're not owning the software and sitting there and making the thing yourself. You're just telling ChatGPT what to do, and it crafts it all for you.
Yeah.
And I can't look into the crystal ball too far with all of that, because literally that watching that video sort of like cracked my brain open into going, where's this going to go? I mean, we've had several years already with ChatGPT and AI. As people shout, you guys probably can't hear this, but there's like people yelling in the front yard of Alex's apartment building, and it's very distracting. We've had several years to kind of look into the crystal ball and go, where is this headed? But there was something about them talking about a hardware product, which wasn't unfathomable to me 24 hours ago, but now it's like they have a prototype. They're using it with how they think we all will use it eventually when we all have one, or they hope we all have one.
Yeah.
So my brain just starts going, well, what's that going to look like? And again, what's the cost of it? What are we going to give up to have this thing? And I don't want to get full on dystopian, because like you said, we'll just opt out, if this isn't something that aligns with...
I feel like most of the environment, the technological environment that the iPhone launched in, and the social environment that the iPhone launched in was a much different social environment than today.
Yeah.
So just the fact that it feels like they are trying to like chase the sequel to that makes me more skeptical.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to feel like that the next time that happens.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting though is I feel like even Jobs was chasing sequels to a certain extent on a much larger scale. I was watching this documentary on Edwin Land, who invented the Polaroid camera and Polaroid film.
Oh yeah, I mean Jobs was chasing sequels in a more, I guess, a less information rich environment.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean everybody's in a way chasing sequels, but.
But
I don't think it feels like. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to speculate to it. It just doesn't.
No,
I don't think it does any good. I do think that AI is useful if you feed it your bullshit that you don't really want to deal with.
Yeah,
it's very useful for that, and it will free up brain share. I mean that's speaking from firsthand experience,
right?
Which is nice, and it does feed up your ability, but then. Also, then you have to make sure that you use that ability to focus on things that you actually want to spend time focusing on, because it's just as easy to get sucked into some mindless vortex with that extra time.
Well, and not even that. You use the extra time for things away from, I don't know, the internet or making stuff for the internet or whatever it's going to be.
And obviously that's what we say.
I think that's the big kind of pitch is like, hey, well, if ChatGPT can make your elaborate spreadsheet for this thing that you need for work in 30 minutes
then
instead of you doing it in 3 days, go hike. Well, we're just going to do more work. Like, if ChatGPT can make a video for me using a photorealistic version of myself based on the real footage I give it. Like I want all my videos to look exactly like this, and I want to work with you to come up with the script, and then I want you to spit out like me talking to camera in synthetically, and then I can tell you, I'll put some B-roll from WWDC 2022 over this part of the video, and like I can build it just by telling you what to do.
Yeah.
If I can get that video done in 3 hours instead of 2 days, I'm not sitting there going, great, now I can go spend time with my kids. I'm going, now I need to start making the next video because I can crank them out that much faster, because this whole ecosystem of social media and content creation,
I don't think we're going to find a lot
me into
more time though to
doing more.
Consume content. Like, and I think that, I mean, yeah, you can definitely fall for that or fall into that, but you can always play that game. You know, that's what they call like chasing the bottom of the, or, you know, fighting to get to the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, race to zero.
Race to zero. Scraping the bottom of the barrel. You can always play that game. We know companies that play that game. We know people that play that game. And a lot of time that's a result of not offering anything of real value.
Yep.
Which is a result of not putting time and energy and brain share and effort into something. So, I mean, yeah, if all you're doing is making WWDC recaps,
right,
and you're just trying to spit your shitty recap out before everybody else's shitty recap goes out, then yeah, you can play. People are gonna play that game, and you can play that game. But
it is
like we do have. Everybody does have a certain level of administrative tasks that they have to complete on a day-to-day basis or on a week-to-week basis, you know, ad infinitum. And if you choose to outsource those things and focus on creating more value, then I don't necessarily think that time vacuum happens, or that, you know, I'll just do more and more. I think it's really up to the user,
right,
whoever's using or taking advantage of this product. And it's also up to the, you know, if you're working for a company and they're just like, oh, well, we're expecting more and more and more of you. Part of that is, well, they're trying to maximize the value you give. So if you give value in some other realm that can't be scaled like that, then that magically will go away. But I mean, yeah, if that's the game you're playing, then that's always going to be the cycle that you're caught up in, is race to zero, do more. And you know, we talked about opting out, but that's just something that you have to acknowledge and opt out of. I think that's a choice more than a you know, metaphysical phenomenon.
And we're seeing that with, you know, at least in our circles, we're seeing sort of an opting out of even using modern tools that do make things easier. Yeah. We're seeing, I mean, we're recording this right now with flip cameras, which you have to, it's cool that it has a little USB flip out thing, but it's USB-A. So you have to have a dock that fits an older technology, because we're all USB-C now. You have to plug it into your computer, and it takes a long time to transfer whatever it ends up being, 2 gigabytes.
8 minutes for like a gig of footage.
Whereas, you know, all this modern stuff, you know, it's just in the cloud. You know, we're not even there yet, right? Where these cameras, if they were modern cameras, should really just be beaming the video to the cloud, and by the time we're done recording, you sit down at your computer, the footage is there.
We'd be live streaming, auto cutting, or whatever. Yeah, I mean,
and there are some of those tools that we're using in this podcast where, you know, we are using AI to sort of auto cut the multicam, and it's a sort of a bad problem to feed it, right? So that we can actually make this podcast
because this wouldn't happen. Like, we don't enjoy that,
right?
And that's a great example. That's a wonderful example of what I'm talking about. This wouldn't be possible without using AI to cut it, or you know, coming up with the AI descriptions and timestamps. And you know, is it always perfect? No, I don't care.
Yeah,
because all I care about is every week we sit down and have a conversation that's at least meaningful to us.
Right.
And then we put it up there, and it seems like there's people every week that get some value out of it. And as long as there's, you know, 1 or 2 people that seem to get some value out of it, it's really fulfilling. And then it's, even if there was nobody, it's fulfilling to us. But yeah, I don't want to go in and cut and spend, I still spend like an hour an episode, even with the AI. Because you have to organize the footage and bring it all in. And then you have to do a quality control, and you have to do the audio, and then you have to export it. And we have to upload it to, the cloud for us to pull, and it has to be uploaded to the podcast platform and then to YouTube. And then you spend an hour, finding the clips and cutting it. So,
and I think this is the argument that Sam Altman would make. And I'm not saying that I want to give up that workflow in order to save time.
Yeah.
But his argument would be, well, let's have AI do all of that.
Yeah. Well, and my argument would be, then I don't care about it.
Then
because
I don't
right
have any
now,
skin in the game.
when I look at it, every week we sit down and have a conversation, and then we have to fuck with it a little bit.
Right.
This is my labor.
Right.
When I look and I see that we have 200 videos on the channel, or, we hit a new listening mark because we've uploaded, we're about to hit 50 episodes over 2 years.
You have credit for that.
Yeah. I don't
versus
I'm not doing this because of the pure, the reason that we're doing this would disappear if it was just we had a conversation, AI handled it all and posted it.
And that's the crux of this conversation to me, in this video.
And that's the whole reason I'm skeptical.
And this is the cost of the cost of
it's
AI.
What are we optimizing for anyway?
Is the
cost, who cares?
Is the cost of AI making our podcast, other than the conversation that we have right now?
Yeah.
Is the cost of that just, who cares? Like, we just you don't care about it the same way than if you have all those input points to pilot the thing.
And now a good counter argument to that would be, well, if you guys got to a certain level, would you hire somebody to do it, and then they would do it, and you wouldn't have to deal with it anyways, and you guys would just come and sit down and record? And there's plenty of people that do that. And
you would give feedback to a real human, like, hey, could we cut to the wide a little bit more? Like, there's a couple things Matt says and it doesn't cut to him.
And there's an argument to be made there, but that is not the reason that we're doing this thing right now. And maybe for some people that is. So that's where I say it just depends on your situation if you're going to get value out of it or not. Because there's certainly some people that do just want to sit down and have a conversation, and then they have an entire production crew, quote unquote, that goes out and cuts this thing together.
But there's something about...
And you just have to know yourself.
There's something about having a real person involved in that, in the spirit of collaboration. They're bringing their whole life to bear, all their experiences.
But then again, to be honest, who's a real, we have skin in the game. When I'm editing the podcast, it is because the incentives are aligned properly.
Yeah.
And in a purely economic sense, the incentives are aligned with me sitting down and doing that work.
Mm-hmm.
That's a shit job.
Right.
Like, if I was hired, even if it was a huge podcast, if I didn't have my incentive aligned, I'm not going to enjoy that job of sitting down to edit a podcast. So yeah, there is a good argument to be made. Like, well, it's with a human. It's like, why isn't it a robot that you're out, or a computer that you're outsourcing that to?
Yeah. But my argument is, it's a person who's going to bring their experience and perspective and expertise to bear, and what little things might they say or give feedback on that would actually shape the voice and vision of what we're doing. And they might say just a couple little things that you take with you, and over time you are kind of chewing on it, and it informs how you engage with each other, or whatever it is, that it plays a role in the soul of the thing. Yeah. Whereas can a magic intelligence in the cloud contribute to the soul of what you're making, or does it remove the soul?
Yeah.
And what threshold of involvement from AI do you reach or cross where you lose the soul of the thing? And it's just this.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. A family member posted a video and it was so obviously AI to me, but not to her. She thought this was real. And it was this veterinarian stopping on a dirty gravel road in the forest to help a baby moose that was stuck in the middle of the road. And the mother moose watched on. And this veterinarian went in and administered a shot and gave it some milk and washed it off. And the mother let her do it. And it's this formulaic, synthetic bullshit thing to tap into the, to tug the heartstrings of someone like my family member.
That video sucks if it's real though.
And it's literally all made with AI.
Like I've seen real videos like that, and I'm just like, stabbing myself in the eyes. Like,
and so they took that formula of these viral videos that actually, from what I understand, really happened. A person found a fawn and brought him into their home and nursed him back to health, and or an injured owl and all this stuff. And then you saw people starting to do these compilations of all the footage from all those kinds of videos and splicing them together in a new, perfectly crafted, formulaic thing that is sort of like guaranteed for virality because it hits all these emotional beats.
Yeah.
And so now they're skipping that whole process of cultivating all of the shots that they need from all these animal rescue videos, and they're just having AI make it from scratch. Mm-hmm. And then people like this family member watch it, and she was convinced it was real. I had to do a screenshot and circle the baby moose's legs to say there are 3 legs here. This is completely fake.
Yeah. See, I wouldn't have even given it the time of day. I would have just...
And I just felt, because I care about this family member, and it just bothered me that they sort of fell victim to it.
Yeah.
What is this? And that's a little bit of a different thing, sort of like the appropriation of this technology to just fabricate something that's a lie in order to make profit.
As long as there's people clicking on that video.
And they do, and
so desperate for some kind of an emotional catalyst that they're going to interact with that in that way. There's going to be people exploiting it, and that's just, that might just be human condition. I don't know how AI, because what's the difference? The difference, honestly, if I had to make a case one way or the other, I would almost make a case towards the positive, that if it becomes so easy to do and millions and millions of videos like that start popping up, because now you don't have to cut it together or hire somebody from a different country on Fiverr to do it for you or whatever, then you're going to oversaturate, and then it's going to become easier for people to realize how fake they are. Right. And then they completely lose their effect. When's the last time you clicked on a banner ad on a website? Yeah. That was a game-changing industry at one point. Right. There's an entire generation of 35, 45-year-olds that haven't clicked on a banner ad in 2 decades. Yep. Because it oversaturated. It became too easy. Mm-hmm. So I think there is a case to be made for oversaturation actually being a positive, with things like that that are more exploitative.
Yeah, that the end result might be ultimately for the better, but it sort of.
But it is. I completely understand how you feel when a family member is like it makes you feel maybe vulnerable, or just. It's a little deeper than seeing a stranger interact with something.
Absolutely,
and I completely understand that. But in the case of AI doing, I would almost make the case that good, let's put up with it for 5 years, and I think we'll be better off. And it's kind of like how bullshit doesn't fly as well online in 2025. Yeah. Like, there's still a lot of bullshit on the internet, don't get me wrong. And there's a lot of bots on the internet, but it's more obvious now than it's ever been. Yeah. And that's a good thing, I think. I think it's a net positive.
Well, and my earlier question about the soul of something, and whether it's a movie that's made with a bunch of collaborators, or it's a video made with AI by a single person who tells AI to make the music and to create the imagery and give feedback on hitting the right emotional beats for virality, or whatever it is that the result is that they want to get. And again, asking rhetorically, but at what's the threshold for the involvement of these tools in it crossing us over into a place of soullessness, that it's just this vapid nothing thing that we end up making. And I've used AI in some of my photography videos to create like synthy vibey music. And I've been curious across the entire catalog that I have on that channel, from the music that real people made, and the service that I use lets you sort of adjust the different stems to kind of remix it a little bit. But again, it's still a person made the music, to using full on like copywritten music, and the royalties or whatever go to the artist. And I haven't manipulated the song, nothing at all the way to something where I plug into AI a chord progression that ChatGPT gave me, and
to invoke an emotion.
And I input that chord progression and beats per minute and all these different parameters to come up with a piece of music. And is the audience's experience of those videos with the AI music versus the stuff that was manipulated but that a person actually made, am I going to see people just aren't engaging with it because there's something soulless about the music?
Well, see, and that's I don't think so much of music that you're going to find, especially in the royalty-free world, like 100% in this world, it's probably pretty structured anyways.
Yeah.
And the AI is almost counter structure.
Yeah.
It's so, I mean, I think I would almost say we overestimate the amount of, using soulless as a thing that is counter-human. I think there's a lot of human created stuff that's soulless.
Absolutely.
Even stuff that people really care about, I think makes its way out, and it's pretty soulless.
Absolutely.
And part of that is, some of the things we talked about at the beginning, where the degradation of metaphor and like collective thinking and things like that, they produce something that is again, precision and definition of what we're talking about when we're talking about soulless is probably necessary here, but it is lacking in a soul, and AI might actually bring some of that back. Now, I'd like to think that the peak experience of soul is only achievable by a human, as long as the audience is human, because at the end of the day, what I see as like a soulfulness is something where it's a human's connection with another experience. What is the Tolstoy in there's a quote in What is Art from Tolstoy where he's like, a work of art is something that transmits a feeling from one human to another human. And that's soulfulness in my mind.
Yep.
Again, just my definition for it. And yeah, if a lot of humanity has become soulless or has lost the ability to transmit that emotion from one human to another, then maybe AI is actually better at doing that at first.
Right.
Now, again, if the whole point is to translate an experience from one human to another, then by way of that definition, logic would tell you that, the best expression of that is only possible by another human.
Right.
The purest expression of that, maybe an AI can copy bits and pieces of what make that experience, but it's not going to be able to fully encompass what that is. But yeah, I mean, I would, not trying to be like contrarian in the thing,
it's
but
great.
yeah, I would almost think that, because I listened to it and I picked the thing that was more random, and I ended up picking the AI.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is just more interesting to me.
Yeah.
And it's partly because it was just random. It was something. It's like when I watch a film, and it's the same beats, I get bored very quickly.
Right.
But when you're watching something that's by somebody who's a true great, you're usually enthralled the entire time because they're doing everything. It's like, that wasn't the obvious choice. Didn't see that coming. Amazing. That didn't see that coming. Or any genuinely exciting or, brilliant piece of work is usually going against that. And it's interesting with stock music in particular. I think AI does a pretty decent job.
Well, I think it goes to what you said about saturation. You do the save the cat formula in movies enough, and we're all just gonna collectively get and then the thing.
You might not even have the connection in the music. Like you're just making music, but
or animal rescue videos. The thing's injured. The person shows up, cuts the barbed wire. The animal gets out. Yeah. It gives it a knowing look to say thank you. And the person goes off about their life. Yeah. We know the formula. We've seen 10 million of these. We don't feel anything for it anymore. And then someone comes along, not that they would make it up, but let's say they made a short film and it was, I don't know, something with an injured animal, but they did something to subvert your expectations because you've been trained with this oversaturated formulaic bullshit to expect all these things. And then it does something to subvert those. And it's not the delight in the fact that your expectations were subverted. It's that they were both subverted and you were made to feel something on top of that.
There's an interesting case to be made, right, with what you just said, that AI could just literally turn it into a mathematical equation.
Absolutely.
Let's subvert this. Let's subvert this.
That's right. If the right pilot of the AI knows to do that stuff.
But then again, with the saturation problem, humans are going to solve that eventually and come up with something even more. Yep. So
that hopefully rises above it. And that's, as we start to democratize the creation of everything, that people can make things that they used to not be able to make. And
we're seeing more of a democratization of IP too.
Sure.
Which is helpful with that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just all crazy.
Yeah. And my whole thing is always look at, like, it's super easy to take a dystopian viewpoint or,
absolutely,
more of a, that's
pessimistic,
always,
skeptical, not skeptical, but pessimistic, a more negative outlook on,
like a Huxley or Orwellian kind of,
or just that we feel like we're on the cusp of something happening, and we're just going to have a completely negative take on the whole thing.
It's just not. It's not use. Again, it's kind of like speculating on anything. It's just not. It's not a good use of my time,
right? And
it's not a good use of energy and.
Well, and we all.
It's sexy. It's fun, but it's like I rather just focus on the stuff that is life, is giving me life, like is getting me excited. And
well, I think these inflection points make us want to go to absolutes and go to extremes. We want, nope, it's all negative. Nope, it's all great. Instead of just going, look, just like everything before it, it's going to be a little bit of both. It's going to be some shit. It's going to be some awesome stuff.
Absolutely.
When photography was invented, everybody thought it was the end.
It's over. Yeah.
It's over. It worked out okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you get caught up in that. And then, I mean, you look back at how some people freaked out about things in the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s. And it's like, at a certain point, you're just like, man, you've spent 60 years being in a state of just absolute upheaval.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that personally. And maybe some people operate on that level. That's the frequency that they need.
Yeah.
But personally, not for me. And there's a lot of things that really get me fired up and enthusiastic about, just being a human.
Yeah.
Like we're here for such a finite amount of time. And there is no guarantee on how long that time is. And I'm like, I'd rather spend it doing a number of things other than sitting here and,
like, for example,
being concerned.
your cameras, like
Yeah.
we've been talking about, and this probably might feel like an abrupt right turn, but I just love that you texted me about a FireWire adapter and cable because you want to use a camera that records the DV tape and then digitize that stuff for some video work that you want to do.
And the camera that started it all was the first camera I bought.
Yeah.
Like the very first camera that I remember saving up my money when I was a little kid to buy because I wanted to make little things.
There's something interesting about the this sounds like math or something, but like the higher probability or likelihood that the thing that you end up making with these tools has a lot of soul because you have so much effort and craft and work that goes into making it. You can't just, like we talked about the cloud, like, oh, I just recorded something that's in the cloud. It's on my computer the minute I sit down. Like you have to go find DV tapes, put them in there, record to it, connect the thing to your computer, ingest it all in real time, and then edit from it. And while you're not like developing the film yourself and the chemicals and all that with DV tape in particular, there's something about that slower process, the deliberateness to it, the inconvenience of it, the attention to detail. You got to think thoughtfully about what your data rate is and what the resolution is going to be, and to get that right intersection between data leanness and high quality, all that stuff, and all those little decisions and all those little touch points and all those little inputs are going to be brought to bear when you sit down to edit the thing. There's going to be a different vibe with working with that footage than there would be if you just had a device on you and you told a magic intelligence in the cloud to craft a video that feels like it's from the early 2000s on DV tape, and it's you talking to camera about whatever, or it's a travelogue or whatever it is you're making.
Well, and like we live in a world driven by stories, right? Like what you can watch something and it's pretty good.
Neighborhood is popping today, buddy.
Neighborhood's alive. It is summer in the neighborhood.
Holy cow.
We live in a world driven by stories. So the enthusiasm, I showed you a project that we're working on before we started recording, and the enthusiasm I have for that was so much greater because I know that every step of the way that was done with us, like me and the team being creative about something, making a creative decision, thinking through, okay, how does this work practically? What A leads to B leads to what is C? What does D look like? So the enthusiasm that I come at you with it when sharing the work is different than if it was just input into language model. Now Maggie's coming to get in on the action.
Well, we are something to say about AI.
We're pretty much at time here. We kind of have a hard out today, but
we have a hard out. We got to go.
I mean, I think there were a lot of interesting things that were dropped in there.
And thanks for indulging me with the AI conversation. I didn't come in quite hot in a sense, but I watched that video today and was working on a script about it and all this stuff. And
it definitely like took over a little bit.
Yeah. Mostly, I was
interesting.
Just curious some of your thoughts about it, even though you hadn't watched the video. So I appreciate you indulging me in that.
Yeah, that was fun.
Good times.
Sweet.
It had been a golden afternoon, and I remember having the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the summer.